Yeah, I was kind of just a regular Joe working, the grind like everybody else. And I think it was about maybe 3-4 years ago, I just decided I'm kind of done with this life, working for the man, if you will. So I stumbled upon making money online. Had no idea this whole world existed, that there's all these online entrepreneurs out there making really good incomes. And first thing I got started with was mainly like affiliate marketing and then Kindle publishing. So I dabbled in that for quite a while. Did quite well with Kindle publishing and affiliate marketing. And then I realized about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I heard everybody kind of talking about private label and Amazon and stuff like that. So I was like, well, what's this all about? Like, what are they doing there that I'm not doing? So I was just mainly doing the Kindle stuff. So I came across, I don't know, have you ever heard of Ryan Daniel Moran?
Yep. I've heard of him. I've listened to it. Is he the Freedom Fast Lane?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he had that podcast, and he had all this success a few years back with Amazon private label. And again, I didn't really know a whole lot about it. So I had just been listening to his podcast, and he ended up selling like this brand that he started on Amazon. He only had like 3 products, maybe 4. And he sold it for this ridiculous amount of money. And he was an internet marketer and, a guy that had a lot of success. But that kind of raised my eyebrows. I was like, whoa, like, I'm on Amazon, I'm doing the Kindle, and, there's a whole other side to this with the physical products. So I started to really pay attention to him, and because he was talking a lot about it, and he had like his own mastermind groups and coaching client, or as his people that he was teaching this stuff. And it was kind of on my back burner for like a year, or about a half year. He had always been talking about it. Hey, you got to get into this. And I was doing really well with Kindle still. And then I just, I heard enough conversation about private label and Amazon. I thought, let's feel this out a little bit. Let's see what's going on. And I think it was, what are we, January now? So it was about a year ago, approximately, give or take. I really just decided to go, you know what, I'm gonna make a go at this private label. I'm gonna learn as much as I can about it, day in and day out. This is gonna be my thing. And after a while, I started to kind of let go of Kindle and let go of the affiliate marketing stuff I was into, and let go of all the shiny objects, and kind of realized in early parts of last year, as I was getting into this, launching a product or two, going, wow, this is really, I think, the way I want to go with things. So I could say the majority of last year, a good part of it at least, I've been dedicating pretty much every day of my life to learning, growing, just educating myself as much as possible while I grow my brand, to really make a go at Amazon private label. And I'm realizing it's not even just Amazon you can sell on. There's so much more to it now. And it's evolved into a real business, which is something that is an asset, something I could sell down the road, just like Ryan Daniel Moran did, or just hold on to and just keep growing and growing and growing. So that's kind of where I'm at. And, I'm kind of on like a path, at least the past year or so, with like a clear vision of where I want to take my company, my brand, and just really enjoying my customers and things like that. So it's just such an amazing feeling knowing that there's all these other things or ways to make a business or make money online, but you find something you really like, and you're like, you just go with it 100% and just put all your focus and attention on growing it into something big. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Like I said before, I still remember a couple years ago when you had first come up with the idea and you were researching it, and we were talking about masterminding, and you were talking about the podcast, which you were going to start up. Where are you now compared to when we had first connected and you had the idea? Do you mind sharing like how many products you've launched, if you've had any successes, wins, losses, anything like that, just so there could be some context to this conversation?
Yeah, I have 6 total parent products, but then there's multiple variations of each sometimes. So it's like, I think it's like 12 or 13 actual SKUs.
Oh, wow.
And that's just kind of, I started out real slow and just, get my feet wet last year, and, launching a product with some different variations, and then, launching another. And then you realize you're like, I'm going to just keep rinse, wash, repeat, whatever. And just keep putting the pedal to the metal. And kind of realized going into Q4 of last year, I was like, okay, I want to have a lot more products. I want to keep going with this big time, and just want to keep expanding my assortment and my brand and stuff like that. And, started off pretty slow. So that's kind of where I was at maybe the last time we were actually speaking about this, just kind of feeling it out,
Yep, I remember.
And I was still doing Kindle at the time, and it's like, that was good, and Kindle's definitely a great opportunity. However, I just really realized, going into after the first few products, I was like, this is sustainable to me. This is I get this as far as like a business model going forward. It's not just Amazon, and it's so much more than that. So that's kind of where I was at. And my goal actually by the end of this year is to have, I wrote it down the other day as far as the specifics, but by the end of this year, I hope to turn this into $1 million business and have.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely, man. So, I mean, I know it's all possible because I see other people doing it in our space, in our community, and I know it's achievable. So that's kind of my planning this year is to turn the brand into $1 million business. And that's revenue top line, but
sure.
The goal obviously is just more products and just more traffic and more exposure and building the brand. So that's kind of where we're at.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you sharing your journey and where you've come and where you are now. So, the main topic today is going to be, how to launch your first private label product. And just like Nick said, he's got, 6 main parent products and other products as well. So he's got the experience him on. So first off, before we dive into it and start talking about what exactly private label is and how to do your research, how to source, negotiate, all the other things that go along with it, if we can get through it. Be sure to like this video, guys. If you're interested in private label and you want me to bring on more guests who, have experience with it and who have had success and people who can help you out, be sure to like this video. Also, leave a comment down below. Let us know where you are in the country. I'm from Connecticut. Where are you from, Nick?
Milwaukee.
So we got Connecticut, Milwaukee in the house. Is that a Milwaukee hat you got on right now?
It sure is. Repping the
Brewers?
Crew, man.
Okay. Yep. How have they been doing over the last few years? I haven't been following much.
We're in rebuilding mode.
Hey, man. It happens. All right, guys. Let's see who's in the comments real quick. So we got 74 people watching live. 23 people have taken the time to smash that like button. So thank you. What's going on, Devin Simon? She's actually a green room member who's having a lot of success with private label and wholesale. So good to see you, Devin. Thrifty Treasures, what's going on? Tanya, Michael Cook, Jennifer Leland, Barbara Dash Sweezy, Adrian Hunter. A lot of people in the house right now. So good to see you guys. But let's dive into it. What exactly is private label? For the folks out there who are like, what does this even mean? Do I just take a label and put it on a Sony CD player and now it's a private label Sony CD player? Like, what does private label actually mean?
It could mean that, really. I don't know how happy Sony's going to be about that. You might have a lawsuit on your hands. But anyway, so it's essentially, if I could just describe it in these simple terms, you're finding a product that a manufacturer makes. Let's just say a manufacturer over in China or India or wherever. And what you're doing is you're putting your logo, your branding, whatever, your packaging, whatever you decide, and you're just, in simple terms, you're slapping on there, and it's yours. It's your brand. It's whatever. A lot of big companies do this.
Grocery stores do it all the time with all the foods and stuff.
Yeah. So, as a matter of fact, have you heard of? Everybody's probably heard of Dollar Shave Club.
Yeah.
They've been really big the past few years. In fact, I believe it was last year, towards the end of last year. They sold for over $1 billion to Gillette, and essentially they were a private label brand. They were selling their products just like a million other people were selling virtually the exact same product by the exact same makers, but it was their packaging, their branding, their marketing, their message, their customers. And that's really what private labeling is you're taking something and let's say you want to start a yoga brand, or you want to start a grilling accessory brand, or whatever it might be. Yeah, you can do that. You don't have to make it anything official, like having like an official business net. Like there's so many barriers that people think you have to climb just to even get to this stage. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from talking to a manufacturer over in, let's say, China, going, hey, I really like these products. Can I put my own logos on it and own labels and things like that? And yeah, absolutely, you can do that. Obviously, there's some legalities to things, and you can't step on anybody's toes when it comes to copyright infringements or intellectual property rights, stuff like that. That's the legal stuff, but that's really what it is. And then you're branding it as your own, and then you're selling it on, let's say, Amazon or Walmart or Jet.com, or maybe you get into retail, maybe you get into a physical store with it. So that's really what it is.
So when you go to like maybe a grocery store like Stop and Shop, or even like Toys R Us or Walmart. I know Walmart has their own brand. Isn't it like Value something? I forgot. But essentially, isn't that what they're doing? They're just like, let's just say Stop and Shop. That's the grocery store I have in my area. And there's like Stop and Shop branded rice, Stop and Shop branded beans. What are they doing? Are they literally just cutting out, like, instead of going to like a supplier that like maybe gets like a brand name of beans or rice, like Uncle Ben's or whatever it is, like they're going directly to like a beans manufacturer and saying, hey, can we slap a label on this? It's like, isn't it more than just slapping a label? Because how does the grocery store know like all the stuff that has to do with the beans, like that the quality's good and like that there's not like all this, different things going wrong with it that could get them in trouble? Like, that's one thing I was always wondering.
Yeah, the food stuff, I really can't speak to all that, but as far as the process,
yeah, that's probably a little different.
But essentially, that could be really what it is. Let's just take food out of the picture. Let's just assume
like,
that
what about a toy or something?
There's nothing stopping them from doing that. Yeah, they can just go and slap that label on there, and as long as there's no like patents on that product, right? Like, that's important to know. Yeah, that could be what they're doing, and then they're selling it as like their house brand, right? So I used long time ago, I used to work for Office Max as an example, and this is for any retailer really now. They all private label. Obviously, if you buy like 3M or your main brands of, let's say, office products like Avery or whatever,
right?
Those are, you're going to spend more money for that versus, let's say, the house brand of Office Max or Office Depot or Staples as an example. They're probably getting it almost from the same manufacturer, maybe, but again, they cut out that middleman and they just go direct to that manufacturer then that makes it, and they put, they just make it as their brand, and then they pass the savings along to the customer typically, because those private label brands,
they're usually the cheapest.
Yeah, usually, and then there's more margin in it actually for the retailer in that case. So yeah, they, instead of having to buy from 3M or having to buy from the bigger company and whatever, they can just go direct, and a lot of times it might even be the same type of product, the same manufacturer, the same warehouse, a lot of the same stuff, getting from the same sources and things like that. But that's really what it is.
So I can obviously see the benefit for like Office Max or Office Depot, any of these companies, doesn't matter, private labeling, because they're going to gain control over the product instead of having to rely on price changes and stuff with the suppliers. I mean, obviously it could probably happen with the manufacturer as well,
Sure.
but control, I see a benefit being, what was I going to say? Price advantages. So you could pass on the savings to your customers. In terms of like you in your private label products on Amazon, right? Because you're selling them on Amazon. Why go private label versus, wholesale or thrifting on eBay or, thrifting at garage sales or thrift stores or pawn shops? Like, why for you did you decide to go private label? What were the advantages versus all the other business models out there, Nick?
There's certainly advantages and disadvantages, obviously, to everything. For me personally, it was the fact that I don't have to run all to like, I don't have to go source this stuff from rummage sales or Saver, wherever you go, Goodwill. I don't have to run around and do all that stuff. I don't have to go to all these retailers and, buy clear. I don't have to do all that. That's just a business model. Obviously, you can, have other people do that for you if you ran your business that way. But this is just easier for me as far as something that in general terms, there's a lot of private labelers out there that never even touch their own product ever. Okay, maybe they
I've heard about that.
Yeah, they live in Australia. They live in wherever. They never even touch the product. It's all hands off.
They have the manufacturer ship it into the FBA warehouses, right?
Yep. So they may never even see it, and that's an advantage, obviously, because you don't have to get down and dirty that way with dealing with things. That you don't have to do it that way, but that's certainly possible, and you can streamline things and kind of outsource a lot of that stuff and have other people do inspections for you, have other people do the prepping for you, all that stuff. And that's just kind of a nice thing. And that way, what I like about private labeling, for example, the way I'm doing it is I'm building one brand around one type of target customer. And that's one email list. Well, maybe multiple email lists, but like one actual core focused customer. And I don't have to then, it's not like I'm launching like 100 different, or have to deal with like 100 different types of customers, 100 different I'm not all over the board. I just streamline my efforts into going, okay, I'm going to build one big email list. And that way, whenever I want to launch a new product or I got a promotion or whatever, I can send it to one list and kind of go from there. And really, again, just focus in on and providing good products and or services to one core customer. And again, that's just my business model. There's nothing wrong or right or wrong with that, in my opinion. There's multiple whatever type of product they want, like all over the board, almost like the shotgun approach. So what they'll do is they'll just find products in any niche, in any category, and they'll source and they'll find them. And they really don't have a connection to those products. They're just in it for the money, and there's totally nothing wrong with that. They don't worry about building a list. They don't worry about any of that. It's just they're finding what's selling, and then they source from different places, which we'll get into. And you know, they're just kind of the shotgun approach. There's multiple ways of doing it.
I made that mistake with Kindle publishing. At first was doing the shotgun approach, and the problem with that is you don't really get to know your customer as well as you otherwise could, and you almost fail in a sense to serve them to your highest potential, and it just complicates a lot of things, man. So I would say honestly, like, I like your strategy. I really do.
Yeah, definitely. And that, you know, and that honestly, like when I first started, I went through the whole process with the product in a niche that I didn't really care for when I first started, and it was a product that I knew after I did all the math and the research and the sourcing and all that I knew was going to make me a good chunk of change. But what I realized was that I didn't necessarily care for the product, meaning like I didn't have an attachment to it, and I didn't necessarily have an attachment to the customer that was going to surround it. But again, I would have made money. And what I decided to end up doing was dropping it all together. So I don't want to say I wasted a lot of time, kind of did, you know, a lot of effort at least, but I realized kind of early on that, you know, I want to actually enjoy opening up the laptop every day, knowing that I'm working on products that I like, because I was just thinking like 2-3 years down the line, like, am I still going to like this product, or is it going to be just a widget to me? And that was really important, to have a connection, like a passion or an excitement around the products, because you have to think like big picture, like, yeah, that product might be making me $100 a day profit, but maybe by year 2, year 3, I just hate the customer and I hate the product, and therefore I neglect it, you know, and then it just becomes a burden, and I don't even care about the money at that point or whatever. But everybody's different, but that's how I was. So I reshifted early on. I went, I'm zoning in on one type of customer that I like, that I have a passion around, and I'm building a business around that, because I felt that would be easier for me long term.
Dude, I relate to you 100% on that. So recently I started up my own Shopify store. It's similar kind of to what you're doing, except I'm doing custom designs versus private label. But I'm actually going to the ASD trade show in March in Vegas, and I might get some wholesale or even try to find some private label opportunities over there. I don't know if I can, but the point I'm trying to make is, when I was first trying to figure out what niche to start in my business, guess what niche I was going to go into? I decided not to. Something that I'm super not passionate about, but has a huge following. Could you just take a wild guess?
Marijuana weed products.
Used to be passionate about that. You know, I am at the green room. I'm just kidding.
That's such a boom right now, man. So I'm just saying, I don't have a passion.
Dude, I was going to get into the baby niche. I was going to start a Shopify store about, because you know, baby products, man. I'm sure on Amazon too, it's like sells like, but I'm thinking to myself, like, am I going to enjoy opening up the laptop every day selling baby bibs and baby whatever? Like, so I decided to go with something I'm passionate about, but I think that's huge right there. But Nick, let's transition. There was a question from my buddy Tim Fisk, who's actually, he lives a town over from me, so big shout out to Tim. He says, without giving away one of your products, how did you figure out what product to research and move forward with? So let's talk about step one, how to do research when trying to choose a product. You know, someone's brand new, they figured out they want to do private label, they're trying to figure out how to do a product. How to do a research for a product? How do you go about that whole process?
Yeah, so there's a lot to it, but initially,
simplified.
if you can have an interest around these products, potentially, that helps a lot, right? You don't necessarily have to be wildly, outrageously passionate about it, but that helps. So think about some of your own. This is just kind of almost pre-step one. Think about your own passions, hobbies, interests already. So I'll just give some generic examples. If I was into fitness, if I was into CrossFit, if I was into yoga, whatever, if I was into grilling, just think about things that you do in your regular life every day that you don't have to be like I said, wildly passionate about, but just stuff that you're interested in. And then look at the things that you've purchased to support that hobby, that passion, that interest or whatever. That's what I always tell people to do first, is just look at that stuff first, okay? because again, that's that connection that you're like, if you have like that excitement around it yourself and you would buy it yourself, those are the best products to end up building a private label business around, versus what we just talked about, the shotgun method of, I don't care about this product, but it makes me a lot of money. But I always guide people on, think about what you're into. And sometimes when I do this exercise with people, they'll say, but I'm not really passionate about anything. And that's, maybe fine on the surface, but there's certainly something that you've purchased, or like what I tell people to do is like, look around your house for things that you've bought in the past 6 months or a year. Look at your Amazon account. Like, what did you buy in the past year? When you go to Walmart, like, what are the things that you're buying? And just to start to generate ideas, it's kind of like that writer's block. Like when if you were going to write a book, you don't really know where to start, but you just start writing and it just goes. It's the same way. You just want to start generating ideas. So think about those things. And if you do already know what you're connected to, so, I have a friend as an example, he's like a grilling enthusiast, right? Like he's got a regular job or whatever, but if you ever started a private label products business, like that would be the thing that he would do, because he is so in love with grilling, and it's like an art, right? It's like
there's a huge audience around that too. I've looked into that niche before.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about those things first. It just makes it a lot easier. Hopefully somebody that's listening to this could answer that and go, yeah, I'm really into baby stuff or whatever it might be. Then from there, really what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure you check Amazon. Then, is there actually demand for those types of products? Like that's the number one thing. No matter what, if you're super wildly like geeked out about a particular type of product, or you think, oh, that would be a great thing to private label, well, you just need to check demand, because if nobody's buying it, then nothing else matters, right? So it's all about demand. That's where it starts. Step one really is there demand on Amazon? Are people buying it? And is there enough demand to the point where if you came into the fold, is there enough demand that you could jump in and grab a piece of that pie? So what I do, after I start to generate some ideas, just some thoughts, I'll go to Amazon and I'll literally just type in like the main keyword of that item. So like, let's say we're going to do grilling as a general example, right? I know that's not going to apply to everybody.
Let's go with it, man. Grilling mats.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So let's say I was into grilling and I said, you know what? Let's look at a grill brush. That's something I recently bought over the summer or whatever. All I would do is I would go to Amazon, type in the word grill brush in the search bar or something related, and obviously a huge list is going to populate. And then what I'm going to do is I use a tool called Jungle Scout. Okay. And I use that solely just to kind of quickly give me this information to check the demand. Okay. And I would click a button. It's like a Chrome extension, right? And it tells me, it tells me how many like it shows me all the sellers, like the top sellers, top 10, 20, whatever you can filter to, but it just shows you like, or on the screen, as far as like how many units, it's all approximate, but how many units approximately they're selling a month. And all I'm looking for is going, okay, well, people, I can judge quickly, like, yeah, tons of people are buying that product, or not really many people are buying that product on Amazon. Okay. So the general criteria is like, let's say you look at like the top 10 sellers or top 12 or 15 sellers. Is there enough of that pie going around to the point where I can get in on that? Or is it so dead that, really it's only like one or two sellers kind of collecting all the sales and everybody else is getting scraps? Like, you want to evaluate that and take a look at that. Are there thousands of units going out every single month in and month out or whatever? And once I establish that, yes, there's demand, people are buying this product, you can take a look at other things too, like seasonality. So sometimes products are seasonal. So let's just say like I was doing like pool accessories for like water sports, whatever. That's obviously a summer thing. You have to take these things into consideration. It's obviously ideal to find a product that sells year round or would sell year round in most markets. Obviously, like it's a little bit different than the North, as far as like the things that they can do outside or whatever. So there's some factors there, but demand is everything. And once you establish that there's demand and taking a look at that, then you can proceed to the next, I guess, criteria that we can talk about as far as like what the product should have and the ideal situations to certain products and things like that. But demand is everything. If people aren't buying it on Amazon, and that's where you want to sell your product, well, you can't, it ain't going to work. People need to be actively buying it on Amazon. So Jungle Scout, if you don't already have it, just get the Chrome extension, and that way it'll give you the data real quick. Are there thousands of people buying that product month in and month out?
Yeah, Jungle Scout's a really, really good. I know it's the Chrome extension. I think there's also a web-based as well, right?
Yeah.
But definitely highly recommend that. What was I going to ask you? I forgot. I had something on my mind. Anyways, I guess we'll continue moving on. So that's kind of like the research phase right there. Let's just say you research a grill brush and you see that there's a demand. Maybe there's 15 or 20 people who are making a ton of money on it. You see that there's room for you to get in. Let's move on to how to source your products and what websites you use. So let's just stick with the grill brush example. You've determined, okay, I want to private label this. There's room for me. There's money to be made. What's the next step now? Now that we've figured out there's a demand for this product and there's room for me to come into the market and make some money.
Yeah. So other real quick checks there for your audience, kind of backtracking just for a quick second.
Sure.
You generally want to like private label products when you're first starting out. And this is the general advice that everybody kind of gives. So if you've heard this before, I apologize, but there's a reason for saying this. You don't have to follow this, but I just would advise people to think about this when you're picking your product ideas. You want to generally have lighter weight products and generally have kind of sort of smaller products. Because you got to think about this. If you pick a product that you really are attached to, but it's really heavy and really big, there's nothing wrong with that as long as people are buying it, but you have to factor in shipping. Okay, you're gonna have to factor in that stuff, and that's gonna all come into play into the equation. Okay, so early on, yeah, just get these ideas and don't really start judging too much on like that stuff. But generally, the smaller the better. But there's people would say, well, you don't have to follow them. That's true. I mean, if there's money to be made, if you work out the math and it doesn't matter, that's fine. A lot of times when you start to put up these barriers of, oh, it has to be small, it has to be lightweight. Most people are going to follow that, but sometimes the opportunities lie outside those barriers because the barrier entry might be high. Then you might go, you know what, I am going to do bigger products because not a lot of people are doing that. So that's another way of thinking about it. So once you kind of establish that, let's just say grill brush, that's perfect size, right? It's easy to ship. It's lightweight, things like that. And let's say we did establish that there's demand for it, or grilling utensils, whatever. Those are generally smaller type of products, right? Once you go bigger than that, there's nothing wrong with that. But again, it costs more to sell, costs more to ship. Amazon's going to charge you more. Just take that into consideration, okay? But early on, just get these ideas. And what I want to do then is I want to then start to go, okay, are the numbers going to match up here? Like you want to start to sketch out some numbers. Like, hey, I see everybody on Amazon, they're selling theirs for roughly $20, $25 or whatever. Just get that kind of in your mind. Like, here's the range that I could, in theory, sell this product for, okay? What you can do real quick then too is you can actually, if you go into Google and you type in Amazon FBA calculator, just type that into Google search and it'll pop up. Amazon's got a calculator where you put in the product that you found on their site. It'll put in the ASIN and it'll populate and it'll show you exactly how much it costs to sell that product on Amazon. Okay, like how much is the pick, pack, and sort and ship it, all that stuff, right? It'll tell you that. So it gives you a lot of that data direct from them. And then what you need to do then is figure out, well, how much is this going to cost me now to find this product for somebody to make it? So you need to start connecting these dots. Like, is this feasible? So what you do is most people are going to head to Alibaba, right?
Right.
Or there's global sources. So you can go to globalsources.com or you can go to Alibaba, or in the United States, I think it's ThomasNet. So, but most people, let's just stick to Alibaba just because it's on people's minds. And Alibaba, your audience isn't super familiar. It's just a sourcing site that connects you with, let's say, manufacturers and suppliers all over the world, primarily in China. And from there, it's just kind of like it's like a search engine. So I would go to Alibaba and I would type in grill brush, and it's going to give me a giant list, right, of all the people that make grill brushes that are on Alibaba.
And there's going to be a lot more than you think too.
yeah. And then a lot of it's like the same stuff. So here's some quick tips on like how to whittle that down and to start this process, because this is a process in itself of like finding the right manufacturer. So what I'll tell you is if you go to Alibaba.com and you're just to type in grill brush, as Steve said, you're going to get more than you ever bargained for. But there's some couple options on there that you can filter through. Like there's some like 3 different check boxes like that you can filter the results down, kind of like assessing the quality of the manufacturer. So there's like different, I forget what they're called, but exactly, but there's different check boxes to like tighten up that list, if you will, to only have higher quality manufacturers on there. That's kind of what you want to do. And then from there is really where a lot of like the fun begins, if you will. So you're gonna have pages and pages, right, of these manufacturers. And what I'll tell you is this: in general, try to find manufacturers. It'll tell you how long they've been in business or like how long they've been around. Try to find manufacturers that are on year one. Okay, so meaning there's nothing wrong with them necessarily, but they don't have a track record yet. And if they've been in business like 10, 15 years, I know that they actually know what they're doing.
They've got something to lose as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like they've been doing something right, at least up to this point, that they do have something to lose.
Yeah.
So you can look at that. You can look at things like, are they a gold supplier? There's like little emblems that they kind of can qualify for that kind of stand out from the rest of them. So what you're going to do is you're going to just start peeling through these listings, right? And sometimes it gets a little overwhelming and everything kind of looks the same after a while. And there really is no way around this if you're doing this yourself, but you're going to just start to kind of filter out the good and the bad, and then just save the URLs or put them in a spreadsheet or whatever, and start looking at their product catalogs, because they'll put their catalogs on there of, let's say, grill brushes, but they might make 500 other things. So you have to kind of look at all the things that they have available, and then you start to look at the product pages that they have, and just kind of ask yourself, is this somebody I want to do business with? Because sometimes their pages are really incomplete. They don't have good pictures. It doesn't look like they take pride in their business. They're not really presenting their business very well. And you just kind of weed it out, right? And you come across some manufacturers, like maybe they've been in business for 10 years. They're like a gold supplier on Alibaba. It looks like they really have their stuff together. Like their site looks good. You can find their own website off of Alibaba too. It just really looks like they have their business in order. And that's I just start filtering it down and weeding it down. And again, just because they make grill brushes doesn't mean that's all they make. They might make a ton of other things. So
sure.
You kind of have to know that. Sometimes they maybe just specialize in grill brushes. So you have to look at that and go, okay, maybe they only make that one-off grill brush, but their specialty is in like pet products. But for some reason they make that grill brush. I might weed that supplier out because they're not really interested in that. It's just something they so happen to come across and make. So if you can find a manufacturer that like specializes in only sells the products that you make, that to me is ideal. It's just a personal preference, but you're just going to then start to contact some of these manufacturers, okay, or these suppliers or factories, whatever you want to call that. And you can do that right through Alibaba. Little messaging system, and you just start sending away messages. So let's say I weed it down to like 10 potential factories or suppliers. And again, you want to look at their pages to go, okay, they have cool grill brushes on there. It looks like they let me customize. It looks like they're going to let me private label it. Sometimes they won't. So you have to look at their pages. And a lot of times it'll tell you right on there, we will let you do this. We'll let you do that. Here's the packaging we offer. So they're pretty upfront about like what they're willing to let you do, almost like on an FAQ page. So you obviously want to find the ones that'll let you private label.
I used to have a template. Sorry to cut you off, but a template. Yeah. Because I've been reaching out to some Alibaba sources recently for my website, and in the past when I was trying to do private label, it didn't work for me. I didn't really give it too much of an effort though. I would just send out a template with like 10 or 15 questions just to see, like, did they let me do this? Did they let me do that? And like, you could just create a template and send it out to like 15, 20 of them and just see the responses you get back. See how quick they respond back to you. See how their communication skills are, right?
Yep, that's 100% right. So let's say I had 10. I guarantee you, if you just send out that template, you want to make sure, again, you're dealing with a language barrier and a culture barrier. So you want to be very direct and to the point. So a lot of times if you have a bunch of questions, put it in like question 1, question 2, like literally 2, 3. Like it just helps with the communication.
They'll respond back 1, 2, 3.
Yes, that's ideal. But what you're doing is you're testing them at this point. Like you're kind of kicking the tires.
Yeah.
Let's say you send out 10 emails, maybe only 6 respond back. Okay, now I don't even worry about the other 4. Okay, I'm not going to give them another chance. I waited 4 days, they never responded. You're testing how fast do they respond, how easy it is to communicate with them. You're interviewing them at this point, right? That's really what it is. And they're doing the same to you, okay? Because they get thousands of people reaching out to them, and they don't want to waste their time either. So that's really what you're doing, and you're just weeding your list down. So you're going to want to have an Excel spreadsheet or a document to drop all these links and what you communicated with. And then once you start to get some of these manufacturers, a dialogue back and forth, and they're actually responding to your questions appropriately, giving you the answers that you're looking for, and not, passing over questions and being vague about things, then what you're going to want to do is ask them to take that conversation off of Alibaba and over to Skype or WhatsApp. Okay. Doesn't have to be a verbal conversation because, again, there's that language barrier, but just chatting. That's how I kind of filter them down. And if they're willing to do that, okay, they're ready to play ball. And it's more personal outside of the Alibaba system if you're just Skype chatting with them. So yeah, that's really what you're doing. And you're just feeling them out. And if they meet your criteria, if they're willing to private label, if they're willing to work with you on packaging, all this stuff.
Oh, looks like Nick got kicked. Let's wait for him to come back in. Beautiful Google Hangouts. Anyways, let's see if we can go into the comments. Let's see. Let me know in the comments, can you still see him? Is he talking? Because on my screen, I just see flowers.
Okay, looks like we're back there. I think we dropped off.
Okay, man, I was about to dive into the comments section and start to attempt to answer these private label questions.
Yeah. You're interviewing them at this point, okay? And this is kind of scary for people. You're talking to people a world away, and you think that, what are they thinking about me and things like that? And that's fine. They're thinking about the same thing about you. Like, they don't know who you are. Usually, a lot of times, who you're talking to are like younger sales reps, that maybe in their early 20s.
Yep.
Young kids, things like that. And they're just starting out and things like that. So they're nervous to kind of talk to you as well. They don't know anything about you, but you're just trying to build that relationship right off the bat. And here's really important cultural things. They're really big on building relationships, building partnerships. Those keywords there. They don't want to waste time, and they don't want to waste your time and things like that. So you want to be very polite, very professional. And once you kind of whittle that list down to maybe 3 or 4 suppliers that you've had great communication with, then you want to move on to the next round is, okay, let's order samples. Okay.
I was just going to ask you about it.
Yeah. So samples are a must. Okay. And again, you're still testing them at this point. You're going to order samples, and yes, they do cost money. Okay. And that's a part of the process. So a lot of times when I'm in the Facebook groups, people are complaining that, this manufacturer wanted to charge me $100 or $150 for samples. That's outrageous. You have to understand something, that they're testing you as well. They're going to see how much skin in the game you're willing to put in.
Are you serious? Or are you just messing around trying to get some products cheap?
And then you do have to understand it does cost a lot of money because what they'll do is they'll like DHL ship, express, stuff like anywhere you want it. And that does cost a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll get there in like 2 days, and it's pretty crazy. So that's all part of the process. But here's the thing. If you do end up working with a specific supplier, those sample prices are typically refundable if you do place an order with them. So you just have to ask, and they'll refund it for you. So they're testing you, okay? But here's the other thing, though. You're testing the quality of that sample, right? When you get it. You're testing how does that come in the packaging. You're always evaluating them, and they're evaluating you. And if they send you a sample and it doesn't look right, or it's messed up, or it's jacked up, or it just something isn't right about it, then again, you can choose to eliminate them from your bucket of people that you're willing to work with. So you're trying to just filter it down and come up with 1, maybe 2 suppliers to really start negotiating with. But that's it. Yeah, samples are a must. You can't get around that. It always really helps too if you can customize samples. So if you can give them your logo, maybe you don't even have a logo to start out with. Maybe you do. I don't know. But they might be willing to put a logo on there for you. They might be willing to customize it how you want. Not always. You have to ask. Don't ever assume. You always want to ask. They don't have it listed on their site. Just ask and they'll tell you. Some aren't willing to do any of that. Like they're just going to send you what they have lying around, and you have to judge, like, is that something you're willing to accept?
It's a risk you're going to have to take. I mean, there's only so many things you could test with that sample. I mean, eventually you're going to have to place that MOQ, that minimum order quantity, and hope that you've communicated with them properly with your insert cards, with your labeling, with your packaging, with the quality of the product. Am I on the right track with that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's all part of the evaluation process. Like, you're evaluating how well do they communicate back with you? How well do they understand things that, I mean, are they on the same page, or are you just like struggling to get basics communicated? Like, that's all really important. Like, if you can communicate something clearly with them and they're like, I got it. And they can, a lot of times my factories, they'll send me videos of products and pictures.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. They'll say, hey, here's something we're working on. We want to show you what we're doing. I had an issue with like, an inspection that failed recently, and I told them to like reevaluate everything. So they're literally sending me all these videos proving that they have all the workers, like, you know,
Do you have a
checking everything over.
third-party inspector? Is that what you mean by it failed? Like before it,
Yeah.
you have a third-party inspector in China that will actually come to
Yes.
the manufacturing warehouse, inspect it? Because let me think, if I'm in your shoes, maybe you're buying 1,000 of an item, $5 each. That's $5,000. What if you get that and it's complete beep?
Yeah. Yeah. And they thought it was good,
Wow,
or yeah. So
that's
definitely.
interesting. Talk
So
about that real quick.
inspections are a must, and there's going to be early on, like, here's the problem. Most people, when they get started on this, I find capital or money is an issue, funds are an issue. So they're looking to like kind of bootstrap things, right? And one of the things that people end up kind of going, I don't need to do an inspection. And you may be okay. It's kind of like Russian roulette, man. It really is. So it really is like that. Like, you gamble with it. So here's what happens. If I don't get an inspection, everything might be fine. I might have saved myself a couple $100, but here's the deal. That manufacturer over time then goes, I know that he never gets inspections. We're really in a rush. And all of a sudden the quality starts to dip, right? And all of a sudden you send a bunch of units into Amazon and your return rates go through the roof, or Amazon rejects it completely, or they didn't do something right. And it's just, you have a nightmare on your hands. I've heard of this a million times.
Because what happens, even if you have 500 items and there's like 30 or 40 of them that are bad, that might not think like a lot to you, but like, what do you do when all your stuff's at the warehouse and now you see your return rate going? Like, do you pull it all back? Like, that's a huge process. Like, that's nasty.
You're gonna have to. I mean, Amazon will probably say, hey, you know, we got a problem here. You got to figure this out, and they might, you know, suspend your listing and things like that. So I know even very well-known sellers that would skip, and they would tell you the horror story of like, here's how much it cost me to not get this inspection. It was like thousands of dollars, you know.
Imagine, let's play out a crazy scenario. Imagine maybe you went the route of going with the bigger, heavier item because you knew there was less competition, because there's probably going to be less competition with the bigger, bulkier items. Costs more to invest in, takes longer to ship, freight forwarder, all that stuff, right, with the boat and all that. Imagine you invest $10,000-$15,000 worth of stuff and it's all at the warehouse, and you have a night, like, say it's a really good selling product. Like, you can't just call up your supplier and say, okay, well, send me over some more items. Like, like, that's going to take 40 days minimum, right? If not more.
Yeah, it's a headache. So the number one rule really of all this, amongst many rules, I guess, but is inspection always on site. You can do different types of inspections. We won't get into that, but don't ever skimp on an inspection. It's just always do it. It's insurance for you. So recently I had an order go through where the inspection failed, and I always get inspections. And like, I'm looking at some of the products, I'm like, oh, this is really bad. And I got in contact with the factory, obviously, and I said, look, I'm not paying you for the remainder of this order until it's fixed. Like, this is a train wreck. And it's a supplier that I've always trusted.
Was it that bad? Was it like, without giving away what yours is, like, was it super obvious that there was something wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if they were just in a rush or whatever, but again, had I didn't get the inspection, it would have been a nightmare in my hands with Amazon. So what happens is they end up going in, and I said, look, you're gonna fix every unit. You're gonna go through every single one of them. I'm not paying you the remainder of the order. Obviously in the nicest manner possible.
Do you have to be firm about that because of that culture difference? You don't. I know that in the Chinese culture, respect's a big thing. How do you go about that in a way that doesn't offend them?
It just depends. Like, so I have a pretty good rapport with this person. And, you know, even she was like, yeah, this is our fault. You know, it was like, they understood. They weren't trying to like say, hey, forget it, you know. So that all is part of the respect and the rapport that you've built, the relationship that you've built. So, yeah, that was recent. That was my only big hang up, really. But inspection always. Here's the thing. I actually had one of my other factories say, hey, do you need an inspection on this order? And I placed maybe like 8 orders with them so far on this particular product. And I go, yeah, why? She goes, well, won't you just save money by not getting inspections? Like, you can trust us. And I told her, I said, look, I will always get an inspection. And the reason being is, well, not that I don't trust you, but you're going to start to lose focus on quality, in my opinion, if you know that, oh, they just take it anyways, right? So if they know that inspector is coming, in my opinion, they're going to do a better job. So always pay for the inspections. You can get inspections right off Alibaba. You can buy them right off Alibaba for pretty darn cheap. It's just a cost of doing business. So if you're out there going, I'm going to skip this because I don't want to spend $100 or $200, it's a gamble. It's a gamble.
I want to be able to go to bed. You know, I'm glad you brought this up because I know I'm going to be getting into some private labels soon. Probably not with Amazon, but with my store. And I'm glad that you brought that up, just because, you know, it is something for us all to be able to go to sleep at night and not having to be worrying about, you know, all the different factors that could go wrong, but especially the quality. Nick, let's keep moving forward because we don't have too much longer, but I want to touch on a couple of the other topics. So let's just try to keep our responses to like a couple minutes to kind of move them through this process. So they've figured out what they want to sell, right? They've done their research. They went to Alibaba. They messaged a bunch of people. They found the supplier they liked. They got the samples. They figured all that out. They talked to them about insert cards, logos, all that stuff. They're ready to order. Let's talk about that real quick in less than 2 minutes, which is like, Rome wasn't built in 10 minutes.
No problem.
But, talk about that really quick.
So like the process of ordering, what does that look like?
Yeah. So like, how do they negotiate the deal with them? And when it goes to like making the payment, because I know that's a big issue with people because it's not just like normal way.
Yeah, sure. So real quick on like the negotiation tactics. So a lot of sellers screw up on this to begin with. They come in with the mindset of, I want to order a low MOQ, only like I want to go bare bones,
like 100.
and they show their cards right away to the factory, and that's bad. Okay. So early on, I want to get pricing when I'm communicating. And here's what I do. Even if you have intentions of doing this or not, I always go, hey, give me prices for, let's say 1,000 units, 2,500 units, 5,000 units. Give me the pricing on that. And it's obviously like quantity discounts and things like that. Even if I have no intentions of ordering 5,000, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
I just want to see where they're playing at, and I want to give them the impression that I'm a player. I'm thinking
smart.
big. So when it comes time to actually negotiate, they're going to generally just throw prices out at you like, this is what it costs. This is their list price. Typically, what I say then is I say, look, you quoted me $2 a unit at 5,000. That's great. Like, could we do that on this order of 500? Would you be willing to do that? And just ask, right? And they might just say no, but here's the thing. You don't want to do it in a negative way, but persistence pays off. Okay. To say, hey, I'd like to build this relationship with you. This is what I'm willing to spend. This is what we're willing to put in the game here. Could you ask your boss, your manager, or whatever? And just keep casually asking. And I found that just by doing that, they will reduce prices a little bit. Not always, but just ask. But that way, at least like where they're playing at with the pricing. So don't ever just assume that whatever they give you is what's final. Think that you can just say, hey, could you ask your boss? Like we want to build this into a big relationship here, and we're trying to make this, let's just say, profitable for both of us.
I love that tip. I love the tip of just asking, because what's the worst thing that could happen if you're respectful about it? I mean, you never know. I've gotten so many deals just in my own world of reselling just by asking. Yeah,
and then if you place multiple orders with them real quick, you can start to then negotiate lower prices because they have that relationship with you. So, if you're placing an order for $2 and all of a sudden it's, third, fourth order, you can say, hey, can we bring this down to like $1.90 or, whatever it might be. And they're going to be more open to that because they know you pay and you're a good customer. So as far as paying, if you go through Alibaba, they've come leaps and bounds as far as like how to pay for things. So what I do now is they actually have a system where you can link it to a checking account. And literally, yeah. So
how new is that?
Past 6-7 months.
Because when I was looking into it, they didn't have that.
Yeah, so you can pay. This is always the big hang up. That was for me too. Like, how the hell do I pay these guys, right? So there's a lot of different ways. The best way though is they link it to a checking account, and the fee is only $15 to use this.
What?
So yeah, so you pay them.
Wow. Go AliExpress. Alibaba.
Yeah, same thing. So just so you guys know, your audience, payment terms are 30% down, 70% on when the order is finished. That's typical, right? So you're going to pay 30% up front, okay, to start the order typically.
Inspector comes in when it's done.
And then 70 at the end. So then you just pay through Alibaba in most cases. So
but the 70 doesn't go until you get it right right. I remember when I was researching this, you put 30 down, the order gets complete. Do you pay the 70 once you get it and you approve it, or is it once your inspector says it's good?
It's really up to you. Once your inspector says good, there's different types of pricing, which I won't get into. It's called like free on board or EXW, and like when you could actually pay them.
Okay.
There's some technicalities to that, but in general, like I know with me, I just say, hey, the order is good. Inspector's good. I'm happy with it. Everything's fantastic. Guess what? We're going to pay you guys, and everything's happy. Everybody's happy. So then, yeah, you can pay right through Alibaba, or sometimes your supplier won't let you pay that way. And the only thing is you would need to send a wire transfer there. That's just another payment method there. You can do that's common in that world there. So wire transfers, I still do them. I do mine through my bank. So whenever I need to pay, I try to do it through the checking through Alibaba. Your supplier, though, they're all going to be different on how they accept payment, and that's negotiation, like how you pay them and things like that. So it's either wire transfer or checking account. And that's the ideal. If you do checking, it only costs you $15. Otherwise, a wire transfer is going to be at least $40, $50 to send. So it saves you money.
Wow, I'm really glad you brought that up about the checking account, because that was one of the big hangups for me, just the risk of doing the wire transfers and the different things like that. So yeah, cool. You know, we could keep going on my outline, but you know what? I think we should stop the outline right now, because we've gone through like most of the process. I mean, obviously we haven't talked about a lot of the important stuff like prepping it, sending it off, PPC, marketing it. Like that's a whole nother world. I've realized, Nick, we don't have time for that. Maybe we could bring you on again and talk about that second half.
Yeah, I could definitely do that. There's a lot to it. So.
And again, we have about 10 more minutes or 7 or 8 more minutes. I want to answer some questions. Is that cool with you?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
And so people have been thanking you and asking more about you. How can people get in touch with you right now?
If you head over to
learn more about you.
If you go to privatelabelershow.com, I think there'll be a link in the description for that.
Yeah,
that's
down below.
I run let's just say just kind of like a rough podcast to teach people kind of like my journey of private labeling and stuff like that. Whatever's working for me, whatever's on my mind, I get in front of the microphone and I just share. So you can get a hold of me that way, or just follow me that way right through that podcast. It's not overly produced or anything. It's literally sometimes just me talking with no editing and whatever. So I like to teach what I'm doing and what's working for me.
I think there's a lot of value in that. Just sharing your journey, right? Just sharing what's working, what's not. I mean, that type of stuff is priceless. I mean, people that share their journeys, those are the ones I like to follow most, because it's real. It's down to earth, you know, ups, downs, peaks, valleys. So, you know, I was actually just listening to one of your episodes today, the Donald Trump episode. Good stuff, man. You know, you're a great speaker and you communicate things well. So for anyone interested in private label, check him out. But I'm going to go into the comment section right now. If you guys have questions, ask away down below. Also, if you guys are enjoying this show, do Nick and I a big favor, guys, and smash that like button. Show some love. This will help this video to get out to more people. Lets us know we're doing a good job, and you know, we really do appreciate each and every one of you guys who are watching. So you're not a lawyer, Nick, are you?
I don't play one
so
on the internet either.
Let's give your non-legal advice. What should folks do legal? What am I trying to say? Legally, is there any advice you have to get a lawyer, or you know, to incorporate? Like, do you have any advice for someone who wants to start private label? Like, what to do to make sure that they're not going to get in trouble?
Okay, so I just recently actually had one of the listeners on the podcast ask that question, as far as like, do I need an LLC, or like kind of what that standing is? And you don't need any of that to get started. You can just be an individual, a sole proprietor. It doesn't matter. You don't need anything. But as far as like the legalities, or let's just say the business aspect of things, like Amazon will let you start a Seller Central account just as a regular person. Again, you don't need to be any sort of business. Sometimes people get hung up, like when they talk to manufacturers on Alibaba, like, oh, do I need to give them my business name or LLC? You don't need any of that. Just get it out of your head. I started off my account, actually, even though I had an LLC, I started off my account just as an individual with the settings on there. Actually, just only a few months ago, I remember to switch it over to an LLC. I'm not giving legal advice here. I'm just telling you personal stuff about just general knowledge on this. You can buy, Amazon technically requires you to have product insurance, liability insurance or whatever on your products, okay? Most sellers probably don't start out with it, so don't let it stop you from getting started. It is, I believe, in their service agreement somewhere where you should have it, I think after a certain point. So obviously look into that, but don't let that hold you back. Most people get so scared of the lawyer and the legal stuff, and it stops them from getting started. Just get started.
Yeah.
All that other stuff, you can literally, as you go, figure
it out.
You literally can, yeah. So you don't need an LLC. LLC, really all it does, there's no tax benefits to it whatsoever. It just gives you a partial potential protection to separate your business from personal. But in talking to people in that field, if the lawyer is good enough, it means nothing. So the LLC just gives you some advantages if you want to open up like a business checking account or whatever. So don't get hung up on that. But as far as like other things related, patents are really important, and understanding that if you cannot step on another patent at all, otherwise you're in trouble. You'll get kicked off of Amazon or whatever. So if the product that you're looking at, if you question like, does somebody have a patent out on this? You can Google it and find out. There's USPTO or whatever the site is, .gov. I forget what it is, but you could do general searches on patents or like copyright stuff that will give you general knowledge on that. So like trademark names, things like that, company names. So you can look those things up in a general sense. But if you want actual factual information that a lawyer gives you, you want to hire a patent attorney. So like if you're looking at a product and you're like, there's really not many sellers on this, is that just because it's patented and nobody can jump into it? You're going to want to look into that stuff if you're not certain. So just doing a quick Google search. I found products that I wanted a private label before, but there were patents out on certain things. You might be able to get away with it for a while, but eventually it's going to get caught. You don't want to play in that arena.
Especially if it's selling hot, they're going to catch you.
Yep, absolutely. So that's the legal stuff right there that I'll tell you is just Google is your friend in as far as a general sense. But if you're really hot and heavy on a particular product that you want to go all in on, and you really want to be certain, and there's some maybe gray areas there, just hire a patent attorney. I know most sellers won't do that and don't do that. They just generally play with products that they know there's no patent out on. And again, as far as like choosing a brand name or whatever, you obviously can't choose names that exist, so you have to look into these things. I can't choose Sony, I can't choose Nike. You just need to quickly look into that. Quick Google searches will generally tell you that, but you can't trust everything unless you really do your research and find out. But most people it's just a non-issue.
Excellent response. Appreciate you sharing that. We've got a question from Michael Cook. What's going on, Mr. Cook? Question: what kind of minimum budget range would we be talking about? Could we be talking about committing just to get going? So what he's trying to say is, for someone who wants to get started in this business, I know this is a really broad question. It's tough to answer. I'm not a big fan of these questions because there is no answer. There really is. But like, could somebody get started with $20? Let's just throw it out that way.
No.
It's not like eBay and Amazon sourcing from a thrift store or garage sale. It's a completely different game.
Yeah, this is a business. And what I will tell people is, a lot of times people, when they ask that, they want to know like what's the lowest amount or whatever. The more the better. The more money the better. Reason being, it opens up options for you, and you don't start cutting corners going, oh, well, I don't have the money for an inspection, or I don't have the money. So that's where you really hurt yourself. So you want to make sure that you go into this with like, you're not cutting corners that way. And my first product, I think I purchased like 1,000 units of this product. It was roughly $5 a unit or something like that. So I was looking at, $5,000-$6,000 after shipping, kind of right off the bat. Now that's a lot for most people going, I just want to test the waters. So you don't have to do that. There's challenges out there where people try to do this for, they try to come in $500 or $1,000. Everything varies on the product that you're choosing. And the more money, the better. I know that's such a stupid answer, but at the same time, it's a business. And if you don't have necessarily the money to get started, it's okay to go with like a low minimum order quantity to get started out with. It's okay. Like I know people that get started for like $1,000. Okay. Here's the problem though. They might blow through all those units right away and they might sell them, but then it takes a while to get paid. And then it takes a while to get more inventory made. And then and that's fine. If you got to do what you got to do. I would just say, if you do your research, try to head in with, if you know play your cards right, and you know your inventory, you know what's going to sell to the best of your knowledge. Nothing's ever exact. The more money, the better. And what I always tell people is, you want to get that experience like selling on Amazon. Do the reselling. Hit up, go to a garage sale. Go in your basement. Go find items around your house. Put them on Facebook Marketplace. Put them on Craigslist. Send them into Amazon. Get that experience at least. I think when you did that podcast with me, we were talking about going to garage sales and you know, making $1,000 over the weekend or $500. You do that a couple of times over.
Get your
you know, I know
side
your
hustles
audience.
going.
Yeah, you get your side hustles going. That's what it is. You know, Gary Vaynerchuk just put a challenge up to everybody. Like, you can make like ridiculous amounts of money just selling stupid stuff around your house that you never think to sell. It's like, put it on Facebook. That's what I'm telling my listeners as well. Like, that's always a struggle of how much money do I have to get started. And when you come in scraping is when you start cutting corners, going, I don't need an inspection. I'm going to cut corners on this or that, and then it's going to be subpar. So, and not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying the more the better. But that number you can't really answer because every product price is going to be completely different. So
no, that's a great response. Some people were saying, I think Michael, he actually said thank you for that answer. So that was very helpful. Let's see, 2 more questions. What about barcodes? So when you private label an item, there's not going to be a barcode. How do you get a barcode on your item, and what's your process for that?
So that kind of varies. It depends upon how far along you are in the game. Like, there's certain points, you'll hit a certain point where, well, let me try to explain this. So if you're going to retail, obviously, like if I was selling something in Walmart, I would need a UPC. That's just standard stuff, right? Amazon requires what they call is an FNSKU. Okay, it's their own system.
An FNSKU.
Yeah, that's what they require in a lot of it. But you can actually send in stuff with just UPCs on Amazon. They call it like commingling UPC inventory. So there's a lot of I don't want to go down a lot of these rabbit holes with this, but here's the thing. And Amazon's got a lot of rules around what they call GS1 barcodes, and like there's all these
I've heard about that.
Yeah, they had all these updates and changes, and they ideally want you to buy a GS1 quality barcode that is legit, okay? Because that's what they want, okay? And from there, once I get that barcode, that UPC, you can buy them online. You can buy these barcodes anywhere. You can buy them from eBay. I'm not saying they're all going to be legit, but I'm just saying you can buy them for cheap, or you can buy really good ones that will definitely, you know, be certified by Amazon. You can do whatever you want. But if you want to, in general terms, if you want to start your listing and get that barcode, you just need that UPC to kind of almost just activate the listing. Okay, you input it. And then from there, Amazon will give you, this is the way I do it. Then once I put my UPC in, then Amazon will give me this FNSKU. It's just a little barcode. It's not the UPC. It's a little different. And that's what I put on my packaging. So that's kind of how you get started with it. I'm not saying that that's the way that you have to do it or the way that it works for everybody. There's different points and different things you can do with that. And they have it in their terms of service or their guides and the barcodes. But that's really what it is. Their FNSKU is Amazon. UPC is just the universal one. I use FNSKUs.
Awesome, man. Last question for you, and we're going to keep to the timeline of this show. Really appreciate having you here, Nick. Last question this is a really good question, and it's probably going to get you to think for a second, but how long do you take to deliver a PL product from idea to the actual Amazon FBA warehouse?
Okay. All right. That's a good question.
I like that. That's a great question.
It takes time. Yeah. So if I hadn't worked with the factory before, and like like right now I'm reaching out to expand my product line, right? And I'm reaching outside of my current network of factories I work with, outside of their catalogs and their capabilities. So I'm kind of starting from scratch. So I've spent probably 2 weeks so far just communicating with them and ordering samples. And I'm ordering custom samples. So that takes time for them to make. So that's an additional 15 days on top of things. Sometimes the samples get sent right away, and that's a really quick process. But I'm probably about 2 weeks in right now, and I still haven't received a sample yet. They still haven't fully made them yet. This is through like 3 different manufacturers. So I'm about 2 weeks in. And it's a lot of waiting on my part, right? Once I start the stuff, it's up to them to like make things and send things. So I'm about 2 weeks in. And then after that, I'll evaluate the samples for a few days. And then from there, I'll pretty much ask them, you know, I'll decide on a manufacturer. So once I place the order, in most cases, it's going to take maybe 30 days or so for that order to be complete, right? Roughly. Could be less, could be more. And so we're looking at, 45 days approximately.
Yep.
And then now to get this stuff sent into Amazon from China, if I do, let's say, Express, that's going to take roughly 8 to 10 days, depending, okay? So add that on top of things. So you got what, 45, 55. Yeah, in my case, I'm out that far. And this is brand new, starting from scratch. But if I have an existing manufacturer that I already have a rapport with, and I just want to order another product that they make, that they offer, that's really a lot faster because I've already built the relationship, and it's more or less just more like me telling them, hey, I want 1,000 units of this, and here's how we're going to customize it, and it's quick, and it's just like, okay, boom, done, and that's it.
So you're not even touching the products anymore? I don't know if I heard you correctly. You're getting it shipped right into the warehouse from the manufacturer in China?
Yeah, the first order I ever did way back when I first started, I actually had them send it to my house.
Oh, wow, congrats!
Because I wanted to see it. I wanted to, experience it and make sure it was good. Because you're nervous. You're like, this is exciting. So yeah. So you just want to make sure because you don't know them from Adam, So it's like you want to make sure that they're doing a good job. You got an inspection, but and then I sent it into Amazon from then on out. But then I realized, I'm like, if I constantly get orders sent to my house, it's just extra work to have to. I might as well just get it sent straight into Amazon. So I work with a freight forwarder, and I just tell my freight forwarder, like, hey, I got 20 cartons of XYZ. It needs to go here, and they just handle it, and I never touch it, and that's it. And then that's all it really comes down to. Is
you send mostly by boat, or you do air? It really differs, because freight forwarder isn't that only for boat? There is no freight forwarder with just plane, right?
Yeah, there is.
By air.
They usually offer all kinds of services. Yeah, a lot of them.
Okay.
So most people, when they start out, depending upon the product, I would advise you, assuming you're going to do something relatively small. Okay, assuming you're going to want to do like you would just talk to your supplier and just say, hey, what shipping options do they have? A lot of times they'll get rates to like their UPS, FedEx, DHL, and just get their rates. But they might have relationships with freight forwarders, okay? And you just want to get all the rates you can and figure out what's the best option, and they'll tell you how much and how long it's going to take. So I tell people to start out with Air Express. Typically, you're going to be really excited to get the product going, so you're going to want to get it there as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So Air Express. Now, as you start to get larger and larger orders, that's where you want to start looking at saving money on transportation, because it can get pretty out of control. So that's where you start to say to a freight forwarder, like, hey, I want to like explore shipping by sea here. What's that going to cost? Yes, it's going to take extra time, but if you're not necessarily in a crunch on the time, it will, in most cases, save you the money. Not always. With the sea shipping, you just need to get the quotes on that. Like if you're only sending like, let's say 10 cartons of, not that heavy of stuff, it doesn't make sense to do sea shipping. But once you do larger containers, like I know people that literally use those giant storage containers that you see on the, on Freightliners and stuff that's what they buy those things out, and that's how much stuff they're packing. That makes sense to ship it by sea. So most people in that are in your audience right now, Air Express is fine. UPS, DHL, or a freight forwarder, get the best rate and bombs away through air, and do a door-to-door ship. That's what I do. Or there's different types of shipping. Just get options, and they'll tell you the options and how long it's going to take approximately, and let them handle it.
My question is, when do you expect your shipment to be delivered by drone? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
Dude, that's awesome, guys. Nick, you rocked it, man. Thank you so much, man. Like, that was a lot of knowledge. We squeezed in a lot of information in that about 65, 70 minutes. And man, really appreciate it. What do you guys think watching live? Did you guys enjoy the show? I'm looking in the comments right now. What did you think about my buddy Nick Landowski? Did he rock it or not? Yeah, be sure to follow him, guys. He's got a website and a podcast over at privatelabelershow.com. That's privatelabelershow.com.
Labeler without the S.
Okay, I'm looking at the exact website here, and it's
private labeler show.
Labeler show. I'm looking at the S and then adding an extra one in my mind. So
tell
private.
Tell them to click the link, I think, or wherever it is.
Yeah, don't listen to me. Just click the link below, and yeah, really appreciate it. Let's see. People are saying, wow, there's a lot of comments coming in. My buddy Tim said good stuff. What'd you say, Nick?
What I'll tell people is, for the time, obviously, we didn't really get a whole lot of detail into like the product research stuff with the numbers and like checking the stuff. And there's so much, guys, that could be said about that we'd be on here for another hour at least. So if you guys have more questions about that, like any just questions, obviously we glossed over a ton of stuff. Jump on that website, and then there's a Facebook group that corresponds with the podcast. So if you guys have questions, I answer all the questions in there too. So feel free to bombs away in there if you have questions.
What's your Facebook group name? How do they find that? Because I'll link that up down below after as well. Just send me over the link, Nick.
It is just, if you guys want to type it into Facebook, it's called Amazon FBA Private Label Show Insiders Group.
Okay.
So if you have questions, and I imagine a lot of you guys do, because like I said, we glossed very quick over everything. I'll just fire away in that group and I'll answer your questions.
If they go to your website, can't they ask a question? Do you have that where if they ask a question, then you answer it as like a podcast episode?
Yep, I have that as well. So you can shoot me an email. You can send a voice question and I'll answer it. Whatever works for the audience, whatever.
Cool. Yeah. So Nick, thank you so much. Again, go over to Private Labeler Show, no S, labelershow.com. Check him out. I'm also going to link up his Facebook group down below. If you guys enjoyed this content, really hit the like button, leave a comment below, share this if you can, share it on your Facebook or with a friend in need. There's so many opportunities out there, guys, right now, not only on eBay, but Amazon and wholesale and private label and your own websites. I mean, the opportunities are endless. Just got to figure out what really resonates with you the most, what gets you excited, what'll make you wake up in the morning really happy and ready to rock the day. And private label might be that thing for you. So Nick, thanks again. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video, and peace out and keep rocking 2017.
All right. Thanks, guys.